Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Writers Chat. We are so glad that you're here with us, whether you're here with us live right this minute or you're watching the replay. I'm Johnny Alexander, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brandy Bro, and our two very special guests. I'm very excited to have them with us today. We have Naomi Musch and Amy Walsh. I'm going to tell you a little bit about both of them. Naomi writes to bring hope that will change the story, maybe even her own. Some of her novels have been finalists in the Carol Awards, the Faith, Hope, and Love Readers' Choice Awards, the Selah Awards, and have been twice nominated for Book of the Year. Naomi's perfect day is spent writing, roaming the farm, and loving on her passel of grandchildren. I love that. I love that she calls them passel of grandchildren.
A lot.
Amy writes historical and contemporary romance, mysteries, speculative fiction, and women's fiction. She is a fifth grade writing teacher in an urban public school. Amy and her husband Patrick have three creative children. She considers herself greatly blessed in the roles God has given her as an earthling, including that of aspiring wordsmith, teacher of youngsters, nature appreciator, tea aficionado, avid dessert fan, book fanatic, lover of family and friends, and Christ follower. And we are just so thankful to have both of you here today. This is kind of a different episode. We're talking about fiction collaboration, which has just become a very popular thing to do in recent years. And so I think I received Naomi's newsletter, and there was this beautiful cover of a series that she's doing with some other writers called Apron Strings. And I'm not gonna spoil anything. I'm gonna let them tell you about it. But I was just so blown away. So I went to Amazon. I was looking at all the covers, and because I was just so intrigued. And I thought, we've done this topic in a little bit with the Mosaic collection when they were on, but it's been a couple years. And I thought, you know what, it's time. It's time for us to do this again, because this is something that any novelist can really do. It's not easy, but you can do it. So I'm going to turn it over to Naomi and Amy and say welcome and thank you, and just excited to hear what you have to teach us today.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I'm going to get my screen up and then
Okay.
here we go.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. This is really fun already. And we're hoping we can share some pointers in case you're thinking about doing a collaboration, or if you've been invited to do a collaboration, so that you're kind of aware of what you'll be looking at doing, what'll be coming in all likelihood. And the first thing that you might wonder is why collaborate at all? What's the point of collaboration? We as writers tend to be reclusive in some ways, that's where we do our work. And especially in years past, now we have this whole world of social media and everything where we can connect with one another, like at the Writers Chat and many other places and online. And so it's changed, it's shifted things. And so we have this opportunity now to collaborate. And, the first reason we might want to do it is because it's fun. Amy and I and the other writers of the Apron String series, it has been so fun getting to know each other, getting to brainstorm ideas together. It's just,
yeah, it's like solving a puzzle.
It is. And there's so many opportunities, and I'm trying to figure out how to get out of my full screen view option.
I'll take over for a couple minutes if you want. Okay.
Here we go. I think I found it. Okay, because I just wanted to be able to access my notes. We build relationships, and actually, Amy's going to talk about that, and I have a story to share about that later. So, and obviously we want to expand our audiences, and that's one of the main reasons why you might want to collaborate, because when you're collaborating with other people, you're promoting each other's work, and you're doing parties together and all different kinds of things. So you will naturally, without pushing too hard, be able to expand your audience. So
each author brings his or her readership with them as they join these collabs. And then sometimes people in your readership will say, oh, I'll take a chance on this author. And that's how you grow. But I wanted to talk about learning experience too, because I feel like I learn so much every time I join another multi-author series. Working with Samantha Fury on Apron Strings. She's our graphic designer and she's our formatter. And I just learned so much even about how to operate Microsoft Word that I never knew before. So I know things that I never learned about spacing and indents and things like that. And just working with Naomi and another lady on our team, Dawn, they read through Nellie and they gave me so many great suggestions. And I'll take that with me as I write in the future. Definitely we want to shoot for the bestseller flag. And obviously, if you have widened your audience, you have the chance for that. You help each other build momentum. And there's other ways we'll talk about later that you can collab and really shoot for that flag. The challenge, I think I have a mind that needs to solve puzzles and I need to be constantly growing. That's how I feel good about myself. And so it is a challenge to mesh with other people and to like fit your characters into their book and their characters into your book, and you build relationship that way. I just got a message from one of the ladies I'm collabing with on another series yesterday, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to put 2 of your characters in my book. My people are going to be biking, and they're going to pass your characters on the way." And it was just silly and fun. It's just a fun thing to do. So there's a lot of great reasons why you would want to collaborate. Who's in charge? Go ahead, Naomi.
Yeah. Depending on if you've got the idea for the collaboration or if it's a couple of your close friends, you start bouncing around the idea of a collaboration, you might be wondering, well, who's going to set the parameters? Who's going to create the guidelines? Who's in charge? When we did Apron Strings, Apron Strings is the brainchild of Jenny Knipfer, Knipfer. And she is a historical fiction indie writer who wanted to, I don't know how the initial idea popped into her head, but she wanted to create a series that would involve multiple authors. And our books are coming all out in 1 year period. So every month there's a new release for 11 months. And that was in her thinking to be able to make this spiral out and to bring together a bunch of indie or hybrid authors and help them develop their platform, which I thought was so cool that she wanted to, that was one of her reasons for wanting to do it. So she is our lead author. And even though we all have ideas and we all have still our independence, there's things that we run by her, and she established, like I said, all the guidelines, and we're going to be talking about a lot about guidelines later. If you're doing a collaboration through a publisher, and it's different. By the way, I seen when Amy did this slide, she said an editor of a tradie or indie, and I've never heard it called a tradie, but I really like that word, and I'm going to use it a lot. And
I don't even know if that's appropriate or spelled right, but
I think it's funny. I think it's cute. So when you're doing it through a trade publisher, it's different, because if it's a book series, you're just dealing pretty much with that publisher. You're not really in conjunction with the other authors. Like Johnny and I are both in a series together. She had the first book, I think, and I had the 6th book. And we didn't get together to sort out all these things, but we do work together sometimes, or we have, when that series was really being promoted, to try to promote one another and encourage one another and the other authors in that series. So that's how we might cross paths. Whereas in an indie, doing it this way, you're tied together and you're committed together for a year or two and over the course of the project. And so what we all have ideas, but in it, where when you're working with a publisher, the editor is, if there's a decision to be made, the editor is in charge, or the acquisitions editor is going to make the final decision. It's not a democracy. And the same can be said in some ways with doing a indie collaboration, because whoever's in charge has visualized how they want this series to go. And so there are times you need to let your idea go. And on the other hand, if you are creating the series idea, there are times, even if you are the one in charge, that you're going to want to be flexible and take into consideration the ideas that your team has. Creatives, we tend to really cling to our ideas, and we need to know when to let go of them, and, not be bullheaded about it and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and another thing is, in working with a group of, I'm going to save that for later. There's another type of collaboration too.
So let's move on to themes. There's all sorts of themes that you can tie a group of books together with. So I'll just talk about some of the ones that I'm familiar with because of the series that I've worked on. So first of all, we have the common object. So that was the big deal in the Apron String series. So in Naomi's Polly, we see Mrs. Canfield's cookery book, and it really plays a part in Polly's life as she's trying to operate a tea room. Well, then this book will be passed on to my character a decade later, and we have Nellie. And so I have to find a way for her to get this cookery book. So in the background, I'm thinking, okay, how can this cookery book get from where she is in Polly's world to my world on the other side of the country? So Naomi's character gives her this book to her relative who is traveling across the country on a train just to have something for her to read. The character misplaces it, and then it ends up being donated by the railroad to a rummage sale that is raising money for the Drought Relief Fund in 1931. So that is how my character gets the cookbook. So then we have to pass it on to the next character, Jenny's character, and Priscilla. And I won't give it away because it's kind of fun. But this cookbook is passed from character to character throughout a whole century, decade by decade. So it was really awesome to have that too, like a little treasure, a little treasure to hide in all the books.
I think that's the thing that really intrigued me when I first saw the cover, and like I said, it was just so adorable. So I went to Amazon and I thought, oh my gosh, what a great idea. I mean, to take this one thing and each book being separated by decades. And I don't know if anyone else has done that or not. I mean, we see like objects handed down or they're found or something, but to actually zero in on what is which one's the first decade? Is it the 20s,
1920s,
yeah.
yes.
20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and we see the the change of fashion and everything. I thought it was genius.
I think Jenny came up with a lovely idea, and
Yes.
it does really gives such a picture of history, vintage eras, and then more modern times. And it's going to be so exciting once we get into the 70s and 80s, the times that we know, to go back in those times. So, and I just have that common thread. It's all women's fiction. There's a little romance thrown in, but it's really learning how women dealt with these decades and all the things that were going on. So it's pretty cool. So another one is a common occupation, and Naomi had an anthology she's part of, the Lumberjacks and Ladies anthology. So in that anthology, you have all these men working in like lumber, the lumber industry. And, you think of those guys as being like the diamonds in the rough and kind of rugged and maybe too wild, but they found a way, to bring out those stories, and they're very different from each other, but they all center around a lumberjack. Another one that I was thinking of is the Brides of Pelican Rapids series. I have Lisa Prysock's book up there. And the common occupation is matchmaker. And that seems to be a heavy theme in a lot of Christian fiction. But this one is also part of a common setting because all of those brides end up in Pelican Rapids in Minnesota. And so you get to know more about, the pioneer times. Well, it's actually time that after the Civil War, when, so many of our men had died during the war, and they didn't really have hope of getting a husband as a single woman unless they were willing to become part of the bride, the matchmaker, the mail order brides. So it's pretty cool. Another common setting that I've been part of is the Whispers in Wyoming. And this is not historical, it's contemporary, but all of the main characters end up or live or leave Wyoming. So it was such a joy to research Wyoming and learn about its people and its history and get into those books. A common biblical theme, and it just, I know it's all God ordained, but it just so happened that this year I had the opportunities to join 3 multi-author projects, and they all have biblical themes. and they all have the theme of redemption. So I am heavy into redemptive arcs right now. And it's just when you have a biblical theme, it really keeps your mind focused on why you're writing, and that you're doing this for, the glory of God, and that you want people that read this book or your books to draw closer to our creator through the book. So that's another big one. Calendar themes have gotten big lately. And one of the ones that I'm a part of is the Thanksgiving Books and Blessings series. So all of the books in that series, and I think we're up to collection 6 this year. All of the books in that series have a high plot point that ends up with Thanksgiving. So it's neat because there's not a lot of books that involve Thanksgiving. There's a lot of Valentine's or Christmas books, things like that, but it was really great to be part of that. Another one that I had my eye on, Courtney Walsh's, I think it's called Sweater Weather. And I think there's 6 or 7 authors in that series, and they all involve the autumn. So we can have all kinds of calendar themes. Oh, and I was just going to say that we have to make sure that we have something marketable. We don't want to waste our time. We all have lives and we have families and things we want to get done. So we want to make sure that our themes are something that our readership will enjoy. Often when we come up with these ideas, we're looking at something that's already been done that people have really liked, and then we put a new twist on it. And so we just have to make sure we're marketable and that our books can be competitive, because if you look at those stats at the bottom of the slide, it's overwhelming. You can get very discouraged when you think of 11,000 books published daily. Now, of course, they're not all Christian fiction, but still quite a significant number are.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Back to Naomi.
All right, so I thought I would take a little bit of time to talk about some of the difference in series. I already mentioned how the collaboration is with a trade publisher, that it's entirely through the publisher, and you're probably not going to pitch a series idea to a publisher. I mean, you might, I suppose, if you really have a great relationship with an acquisitions editor there or something, but you're probably not gonna. Publisher is probably going to put out a call, and agents, if you have an agent, are going to call their team and they're going to say, hey, they're putting out a call for this, and if you've got something on your computer, get it together and send it to me to take a look. That's kind of what happened with Season of Enemy and some other things that I've had coming and going, and that's kind of how that works. It's a little different if you're working with an anthology. With a publisher, you might pitch your idea through your agent to this publisher, or maybe not through an agent if it's a smaller press that takes them without. Then you might have a group of people getting together and saying, hey, what about this idea for an anthology of novellas? And then you might put together a proposal and send it to your agents, and they might pitch it to the publisher if they think it might fly. And I have one coming out this fall, an anthology collection for Barber called Courting the Country Preacher, that kind of worked like that, where I was invited to be part of this collection of novellas. And so that works more like that. Whereas in the indie part of it, and then once the publisher gets it, when you're in an anthology, you're still kind of tied with those authors a little more. You're maybe discussing your projects, trying to make sure the tone sounds the same throughout the book and that kind of thing. But when you're with an indie, you're going to be really, really tied together, and everything then is going to be on your plate. A publisher is going to take care of your editing and your cover and everything, and you may or may not have a say in it. But with the indie book, you're going to be committed for the long haul. You're going to be working hand in hand with all the aspects of production. And so if someone invites you to be part of a series, or if you get the idea for a series, you want to be aware up front what the commitment's going to be: time, finances. It's wise to, if you're leading a collaboration effort to have some of those details kind of figured out, so you can have some, because authors are going to want to know. They're going to say, well, if I do this, what's it going to cost me for the cover? What's it going to cost me? Am I going to have to hire a formatter? Am I going to have to hire an editor independently, or are we hiring one editor for the group? All these different things, and which we're going to get into some of those too. But you're going to want to be aware if you're leading it, and if you've been invited to be part of a collaboration effort, these are some questions you might want to ask up front, how that's going to work, and be aware of the time commitment is the big thing. So,
Right. Yes.
yeah.
So we have two basic multi-author projects. We have a series or an anthology. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Series will be individual works that come back to back. Sometimes they'll be released monthly, sometimes weekly, depending on the series. And we all kind of all different kinds of themes. Different authors make these up. And then, you know, we work together, like the Whispers in Wyoming that's at the bottom. Those basically are coming out once a year now because they've been going for 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer. So I think it was 2022 that His Brother's Atonement came out. And then last year, Tanya's book came out, Finding You. Totally different characters. They're all standalones, but they're just part of a collection. And then I'll turn it over to Naomi for her to talk about her 2 anthologies.
I actually have 3, and they came about in different ways. The first anthology I did actually was, where did I put that book? Was with Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas. And this anthology was the brainchild of one of the editors there, who said, she was the editor of one of the lines that they had at the time. And Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas has been sold to Iron Stream Media now, and they've changed all their imprints and things like that. But her idea for this one was to have a series, a set of stories, novellas, circled around a Highlander. She wanted a collection that focused specifically on the hero, which is another thing you can consider, something different like that. She wanted a hero on the cover. And in this one, working with a publisher was a little bit different because it was a smaller press, and we had a lot more hands-on involvement. In fact, early on, she said, girls, get online and start searching for some cover imagery. Well, when you start going to the stock photo sites and you're looking for Highlanders, you get one of 2 things. You get brawny, bare-chested men, which is not a caller for Christian fiction. And you get like some rambunctious beer belly individuals, and you kind of go, no, this is not working for my hero cover. So we really struggled finding a hero that we could put on the cover. And finally, it occurred to me, I said to her, well, you know, I have a daughter who's a photographer, and I have 3 sons. Surely one of them will let me wrap them in some plaid and take a whole array of images. And so this is my son on this cover. It worked out really great. We sent him like 40 some pictures, and I just said, you girls choose. I can't choose. So this is the one that they chose for the Highlanders. And so that's an example of where we did work with you know, there might be a lot of more possibilities with smaller presses for pitching them some anthologies or series collections. You never know. It can't hurt to try. So yeah. And the one that's coming out this fall, the Lumberjacks and Ladies, was this editor was in the process of she was being published through Barber, and she came up with the idea for Lumberjacks and Ladies and asked me if I wanted to be part of that. And then the one that's coming out this fall was a group of writers I've gotten acquainted with who they had an author drop out of their collection, and they contacted me and said, would you want to fill this? And do you have something? And I said, actually, I do. So that's how that works.
It is amazing how God opens the right doors for you, and it happens all different ways. Yes. Sometimes as authors, we get frustrated, like, why isn't this happening for me? But there is going to be an opportunity one way or another. So I just wanted to give a shout out to some of the series creators before I move on to my anthologies. Carol McAdoo, she's the one that came up with Thanksgiving Books and Blessings and the Prairie Rose series that comes out every May. Right, it centers around Mother's Day, and those Prairie Rose are all about pioneers and going out in the Oregon Trail. And I'm really excited because this year, one of my friends, Anna Jensen, joined the series, and she is doing one that takes place in South Africa. So you can see how Carol was willing to, extend the theme to now we have a South African woman who is in the Cape Colony, and she is a pioneer in that area. So I love the fact that these indie series are open to suggestions and branching out, and like the sky's the limit here. I also wanted to mention Danny Roan because she has a lot of great brainchilds. She's the one that well, with other authors, they came up with Whispers in Wyoming, and also the Ornamental Matchmaker series, which is really fun. So every novel centers around an ornament, kind of like the Hallmark movies. It's really cute. And then Lisa Prysock, she and others came up with You Are on the Air and The Brides of Pelican Rapids. So it's just really neat to see all of the different ideas coming together and having input of a collab. It just gets better and better, I think, every year. Then I wanted to talk about the anthologies that I've published. They're not all fiction. Some of them are nonfiction, but they've always been to raise money for local charities. The first two that I did were written by my students. We started it during COVID, during the pandemic. And I came up with this project to show kids, what publishing is all about. So we had a cover contest. We had a title contest. They came up with the Year of the Mask. And inside there was poetry and short stories and just essays of what it was like for them dealing with the fear of the pandemic and everything that was going on. And then they even voted on where they were going to give all of the money. So they decided to give the money to Jack of Hearts, which is a local charity for families who have children with heart problems. And it'll pay for them to stay in hotels and for them to, just have travel expenses paid during these hard times. So then the following year we did Trapped in the Jar. And once again, we voted on the cover. We did it graphically this time, but the kids helped me decide what to put in the jar. And this time they worked in teams because we were back in school at this point. And so 4 or 5 kids would work on a story at a time. And each story is a different genre. So some of the kids wanted to write a fairy tale, others wanted to write a sports story, but they all have the same theme, Trapped in the Jar. And that one all the money goes to Marley's Mission, which is a horse farm near us. And it's a therapeutic horse farm to help kids that have been traumatized. And then the last one, I have to just give a shout out. It's releasing in April. And I did an all call for anyone who would like to tell a story about a service dog that has changed their lives. And so actually, I had met this woman, Tina Felton, when she came onto my blog to do an interview, Chronicles of Courage. And afterwards, she's like, hey, would you ever consider doing an anthology to raise money to buy somebody, to purchase somebody a service dog? And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So we did the all call. I think it was January of 2023. And then, time was up in August and it's being published this coming month. So I think anthologies can really be useful to gather together for a common cause of helping other people. Though it does get complicated with royalties if you don't do it that way.
Yeah. Can I say something about that? Or
yes.
If you go back to that last one, if you see that book in the middle called Many Waters, that was an anthology collection that we did. My local writers group did that. We wanted to put together something that honored people that had been in the writers group years ago, that had passed on, people that were currently, had things, and it's a collection of everything. It's got essays and fiction and just all kinds of poetry, all kinds of stuff in it. And for that, we wanted to just do something that we don't market it big time. It's on Amazon, but we don't market it. We hand it out to friends and family. We put it into some local gift shops because there's people in the area that go, oh, I know this author. I didn't know she wrote, things like that and stuff. And because of the royalties, like Amy just said, it just goes back into our writers group fund for the hall rental or whatever, because that can get kind of touchy. I mean, how are you going to divide that up between a writer's
Yeah.
group where people come and go over time and things like that. And we had to have permission from the people that had passed on. We had to have permission from their families and things to publish their work and things like that. So that was a reason for that. And that makes that kind of thing different. Anthologies work different that way. That's why it might be better for some anthologies, unless you're going to be donating to a cause, to do those through a press of some kind, possibly. So
I've seen quite a few times lately where a bunch of authors have come together to do an anthology for a set amount of time, usually a year. And then after that year, the anthology is disbanded. It goes back to the individual authors and they republish their stories. So that's another way that people have been doing it.
And that even happens with the bigger presses too. If after a certain period of time, they might return the rights to the authors. And I know people that have done that too, have taken their stories back out and published them individually. So
there's always, so many different ways to approach these.
Yep.
Okay. So collaborative timelines.
All right, collaborative timelines. I'm going to make the pitch here for a longer timeline than a shorter versus a shorter timeline. It might be one thing if you have if you're going to say, hey, let's put a collection out, anthology for Christmas. You know, does anybody got stories? And you have 3 or 4 people and you're going to put it together and get to editing right away and things like that. In under a year or something. But there are so many benefits to having a longer timeline to work with. And that is, go ahead and just put them up there, Amy.
Okay, sure. I'll just go put them all.
Yep, go ahead.
Just don't want to go too far. Whoops. Okay.
No, that's fine. You know, obviously, the more time you have, the more opportunities you have to grow your audience because you're starting to build buzz ahead of time. We started our Apron String series. Oh, gosh, it's been already like a year and a half since we first started putting things together on what we were going to do. And now the first book just came out this January, but during that time we weren't idle. We started our Facebook readers group page. We started creating buzz as we could. And it gave our ideas more time to gel too. It gives you time to work on your world building and to spend the time you need to write excellently, because you don't want to push out something so fast that you can't do a quality piece. That seems obvious, but also for multiple rounds of editing in our series, we were each responsible for hiring our own editors. In your series, you might want to hire one editor who's going to do them all. And sometimes I know Barbara does that with their collections, and I don't know about some of the other publishers, but we each were responsible for hiring our own editors on the side. And it gave us time to read one another's arcs, and which I'm still going through, and I'm sure Amy is too, but to give some helpful tips to each other as we were writing. The cover creation and formatting takes time. And for our series, we wanted to hire one person to do all that, and she's got a life. So we wanted to give her plenty of time, because things come up that you don't expect. You know, there's always things that come up that you don't expect. We wanted to have time for our beta readers to get our arcs out there to our launch teams, and to really, that takes time. For cover reveals and pre-sales. Cover reveals are something we had. And Amy, I think we'll be talking about this a little bit later, but we had a calendar to keep it all straight, because our books are coming out every month. Well, who's going to do their cover reveal? We don't want this to overlap with that, with their launch day, and how are we going to, what are we going to be promoting in this 2-week period, and things like that. So it gave time to sort all of that out. A publishing timeline makes sense. And that seems like a given, but there will be a lot of things that, as you're working with a team, that are going to come up that maybe you don't foresee on that publishing timeline. So give yourself time.
I have 2 projects going on right now, and one of them is very short term. Like, it's just like we feel like we're whipping it out. And the good thing about that is that we're all excited. We're all on fire, because it is easy to lose momentum over the long haul. The other series that I'm working on is, like, we're not publishing until 2026. You know, this is our year to start working on our rough draft. And it's a nice, actually, it's actually a very nice thing because I don't feel anxious at all about getting that work done, and there's like deadlines of when we have to have certain things done. So it does keep us accountable, but it's totally opposite here. And I see perks from both of them, but I do agree with Naomi. It is good to have all that extra editing in and have the beta readers. I think you should give yourself at least a year and a half.
Yep, because you are going to have other things that you're working on in the interim. When Jenny brought this idea to us, she had already written her story. And so as we're going through, like, what are we doing about this? What are we doing about that? And stuff. And she was like, okay, girls, I'm working on something else right now, but I'll come back to you. And we've all been like that. And my book was the first one in the series to release. And so things that other authors are just facing now, I faced 6 months ago, but I need to hang in there and help them through that process. So, and vice versa, they caught things after my book came out and I was like, oh, go back, pull it down.
There's always something, no matter what.
There's always something. So, yep, more time is helpful.
Okay, so authors have to agree on promo dates. You don't want it so that everything is happening at once. You want to spread it out. We want everybody to be able to have a life. We don't want to have like a whole bunch of authors posting on one day and then 3 days with nothing. So you have to agree on just regular posts and promo dates. You don't want to have so many promos that readers get sick of hearing from you, but you want to surprise them once in a while. The release dates, it's important to have consistency because readers should be able to expect, oh, this next book is coming out on the next Wednesday, or this is coming out mid-month next month. It just helps them remember to purchase your book. It also helps the authors know when they have to have their post ready and when it's their turn for the spotlight. Same thing with cover reveal dates. When you have a multi-author series, you have two things to think about: the release dates and when the presale goes up. So you want the author whose presale is going up to get some of that spotlight as well. So you can see some of my graphics here. I made a calendar so everyone would know when it was their turn for the spotlight. So the presales, when they go up, they have about 7 days to create posts. And then whoever's releasing their book that month have about 3 weeks. But in the meantime, we want to change up things. So we came up with some different topics that we could do daily just to get some posts out there, like Sunday dinner and table talk, meeting this whole Sunday. Go ahead.
Let me mention, just when you're referring to these calendar dates and these different things that we're doing, I want to clarify that we established a readers group page for our series called the Apron Strings Readers Group page. And so we're trying to keep that particular page active. So these are what a lot of these things are referencing to that Amy's talking about. Okay.
Sorry about that.
I just wanted to make that clear. So.
So we just, if you can come up with themes, whether your group is posting on Instagram, some groups have Instagram groups and they don't even go on Facebook, or Facebook or some other kind of promotion website. You need to agree with who's doing what and when, and you have to come up with ideas, brainstorm ahead of time so it's easy to come up with a post. And so that's what the themes are all about. Once you have some themes that you could do every day, it's easy to brainstorm and just create a post, even if you're short on time. All right, divvying the duties. So the leadership team and some recruited authors need to, combine their expertise and resources, because we all have a life, as I said here. So even if you are like the leader, even before you even ask authors to join a group, or even if you're recruiting people, you want to think like, what can they bring to the table? So that we have maybe somebody that's great with graphics and another one who has a strong social media platform. For example, if somebody has a big Instagram fan base, then that person's a great person to have on the team. So we have people in Apron Streams. We have Jessica Holt, who is a blurb whisperer. She can take this long-winded and maybe a little on the side of boring blurb, and she can cut it down, make it concise, make it exciting, make it attention getting in just a matter of minutes. Like, it's amazing. I think it's a superpower. Scheduling, it's important to have somebody that will stick with a timeline and create different spreadsheets or docs that'll keep everybody on track. Possible narrators. The one series that I'm working in right now has a built-in narrator because she was a drama major, a theater major. So we're so excited because she's going to be narrating all of our books. Naomi is a very good narrator. So she just narrated her book. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait to see how it turned out. Leadership abilities. Sometimes somebody who came up with a series might ask another 2 or 3 authors to say, hey, will you come alongside me to take the administration duties with me for this series? And the name game, which I kind of already mentioned, but sometimes authors will have a rapport with an influencer, so they can help you bring attention to your book. And then there's a couple of series that I've been a part of that actually have their own web page. So you need somebody that has that web page design expertise, the SEO, so that they will make your web page compliant with ADA. Just make sure that, even things like that, all the pictures are captioned or have the alternative wording for people that are visually impaired. And so that they can get your web page so it comes up on the top when anyone is searching for your theme. So it's a very important thing to even ask people that if you're recruiting people for your series, or if you did an all call for submissions, you can even ask people, what can you bring to the table? What besides your book can you contribute to this group? Because it is important.
You find
And back to
that people come out with talents that maybe they don't even know they're going to be important, but you find out that your team will, no matter who you pick, you're going to find out that everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And it's really neat to see how the Lord uses all those for your series, and how you come together and shoulder each other up,
for sure.
along the way. So, talking about recruitment for your series, and I've got a story I want to tell here, and this is why we have agents mentioned, but there are things that with doing series and anthologies, if you're not independent, say that you do or you don't do, or that agents do or don't do. First of all, if you have an agent, or if you're looking for an agent, agents don't generally, I mentioned this before, don't generally pitch a series idea to a publisher, so if you've got, I've got a couple of different novellas sitting on my computer. They've been sitting there for a long time waiting to decide what to do with them. Because, do you have to, Johnny? Yeah, because it's like, well, I don't know what to do with these. I don't know. I'm not really thinking I want to go indie with these novellas just yet. They don't tie together in any way. Maybe there'll be an opportunity that'll come up, like what has happened in the past. But one thing agents do is, if you have a collection, an anthology collection idea that you're working with 3 other authors or something, and you're saying, oh, we have this idea, and you take it to your agent, and then she or he will say, put together a proposal, and I'll pitch it to whichever publisher and see if they're interested. Or if you've got one together, you're going to put together as a proposal to send to a publisher that accepts unagented queries. And here's where networking comes into play again. I have to tell you how I got my agent. I, first of all, have been terrible at pitching to agents. And I get so nervous, I just fall apart, and I fumble through my words. And I was at an ACFW conference, actually, and I had an appointment with a big name agent, and I was so nervous that even though I had been practicing my pitch, I couldn't keep my thoughts together, and I just decided at the very last second to pitch it out the window and to just go in there and wing it. That was a bad decision. Don't do that. I got partway into the pitch, and she goes, this story doesn't have a plot. And I'm like, I'm a plotter. Yeah, it has a plot, but it was no go. She goes, no, no, I don't see a plot in this story. And so I went my way. I later on published that book with a small press and a bunch of books with the small press actually. And it did fine and things. But later on, I had met someone on Facebook. There was this lady on Facebook who I would see her posts pop up here and there, or comments to people. And I'm like, wow, we are just alike. We like the same kind of fiction. We like the same kind of stories. She's a farmer. I'm a farmer. She homeschooled her kids. I homeschooled my kids. We're the same age. We have so much in common. I have to be her friend. So we made friends and got to know each other a little bit. But one thing I had no clue about was that she was an acquisitions editor for Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas. That came up later. And at that point, Lighthouse was taking only agented submissions and continued to do that. But she at one point put out a call on her Facebook page and she said, we have 2 slots to fill for the historical romance section for 2018. And I messaged her and I said, I'm not agented. Would you still want to see something I have? And I told her a little bit about it. I gave her a little spiel. And she said, well, go ahead and send it to me. No promises, but I'll take a look. And it ended up filling one of the 2 slots that they had. And that's one of the books that went on to be a finalist in the Selahs and as a book of the year. And so she became my first, mid-size publisher, smaller mid-size, or her accepting that did. And in the meantime, she was publishing with some anthologies with Barber. She was in on the anthologies. She wasn't acquiring them or anything like that. And she had this idea for this collection. Well, this was back when Barber was doing 7 books in a collection, or 7 novellas in a collection. And so we divvied them up. We thought, okay, well, we'll do this and submit that to them. Well, then all of a sudden they went to 4. And so mine was slated for maybe a second group, but then they never ended up doing the second group. They only did that one. And so that was on the bylines. But then she had the idea, the same lady had the idea for Lumberjacks and Ladies. And she said, do you want to submit to that one? And I said, yeah, absolutely, I do. I have something that'll work that's been sitting on my computer for 10 years. And so we did that. And that one actually was a Carol Award finalist last year. But the crazy thing was because I didn't have an agent to be submitting to Barber, her agent said, well, for this collection, Naomi, I can sign you on as a temporary, because she didn't know me from anybody, and she said, I'll sign you on temporarily with Heartline. And so I was excited about that, of course. And then when that was done, I had some other ideas, and I pitched them to her, and I said, what do you think? And she said, well, we're working really well together. We've tried these 2 projects together. Go ahead and if you're interested in having me, I'll be your agent. And I'm like, yes. So all of that work on those anthologies and networking and friendships and relationships that you develop in this world are what led to me getting an agent. And so now Linda Glass is my agent, and she's independent now because Heartline, they closed officially this past year. And so she's my agent, and I love her, and it worked out to be a good fit. The agent that I had pitched back in the day at that ACFW conference would not have been a good fit. I learned as I got to know more about this person later, I was like, no, I don't think we would have been a good fit. So God knew.
So even your bumbling was used for good.
Yes, it was. So
this is just like a word of caution to those who are in the leadership roles. Be sure to read samples and check out platforms before you sign anyone on. Things you need to think about is, what is their worldview? Is it going to fit the worldview of the series? Are their books free of profanities and bedroom scenes? Do they have posts on social media that are not pro-life? Because that is a hill that a lot of Christian fiction readers will die on. So we have to be prayerful before we even collab with anybody, even enter even the talk part of it. We have to be prayerful before we start the gathering people process. The other thing is submission calls. So sometimes you'll find submission calls just like you would in traditional publishing with these indie series. especially for anthologies. And so here's the example of the submission call that I posted. You'll see something like this here and there on Facebook or other social media. And so, check it out, and maybe that's your opportunity. Also, you just want to look for people who will be easy to work with, because indie authors are notoriously independent. All right. We tend to be blockheaded at times, I guess you could say, a little stubborn. We have our ideas, and I don't know. But we just want to make sure that we're going to work with people that we feel safe with, comfortable with, people that are okay with following the rules of the series, because we're going to be working together for months, if not years. So, which we've already mentioned. So my just advice is to pray for discernment. And there's so many great people. I don't know. I just now it's into the dozens, if not hundreds of authors that I've been working with. And some of my best friends are people I've never met in person. And it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm.
The inside details.
Okay. Now this is where it kind of gets down to the nitty gritty. Once you're actually working on this series together, is you're going to want to agree on most of this stuff ahead of time. If you're the lead author or lead in the lead group of authors, these are all things that you're going to want to kind of iron out and have as a set of guidelines for your group, so that they can refer to again, maybe put it in a Google Doc. We have multiple Google Docs set for our series that I went back to over and over to, well, what were we supposed to do about that? What was this supposed to be? And you want to have that established. And if you're going to join a group, these are things you'll want to know about. So word count, what's the word count expectations for this series? We started out with a set word count, which ended up expanding a little bit, but they're all still roughly the same size in there. They're a shorter novel. They went just a little beyond novella to maybe edging up against short novel, right around 50,000 words, I think, is what we ended up with. What's the final cut size of the book going to be, so that if they're all together on a shelf, they look the same, 8.5 by 5.5, 6 by 9, what's that going to be? One thing that we hadn't talked about until it came up later was the inside pages. Are we going to choose white or cream? And everybody had some opinions about that, about what they preferred. And I don't remember if in the end, if Jenny was hard and fast about what we chose. In my world, I always had been told by editors that cream were for fiction, generally speaking, did cream, and generally speaking, nonfiction did white. Whether that's hard and fast, it doesn't matter, but just so you're agreeing, or you're going to agree to let it be the individual author's choice. What's the point of view of the story being told in? Here's where I had a blunder. And I was thankful I had the first book in the series so that it wouldn't really be noticed later on. But Jenny had written in our guidelines, she wanted to keep these novels to a single point of view, just the heroine's point of view. And I knew that. But we had a lot go on last year. We had lost our son, and my brain turned into just this fuzz. And when it came time to have to force myself into the writing chair, that wasn't something I remembered. And I ended up just automatically going in hero, heroine, 2 points of view. And it wasn't something that came up until just way late in the game. Like the book was going up for pre-order, and it was way late in the game. And she read it and caught that. And we agreed to I would have had to rewrite the book at that point, and it wasn't going to happen. So we decided, since the heroine did have a very strong point of view, that it was fine and stuff. But that's something, you want to establish. Of course,
and
theme.
And we found a way to solve it, because I ended up adding an epilogue to Nellie so that I would have a hero's point of view. And I did that, just kind of bridge it to the rest of the series. So there's always a way to work out these kinks.
Yes, exactly. There's always a way. And theme, we talked about that earlier. You're going to want to have that established if there's a similar theme or even a similar tone of story. Are these going to be more of a lighthearted, sweet telling, or are these going to be like deep women's fiction full of angst? Something like that. Like I said, you're going to have guidelines. Is the collection going, what's the or clean factor going to be? You know, I personally wouldn't want to be in my books in a series where there was going to be hot and steamy stuff, and where there was going to be language of any kind, even mild. I don't like to read that in Christian fiction, and I wouldn't want to be that. But depending on who's out there listening to this today, you know, maybe your series is different. You want to make sure that's established though, because you can run into problems in that area. You know, what the factor is going to be for how warm it is. Are your stories consecutive? Like ours are consecutive, where they follow the decades, and yet each book could be read as a standalone. They might have there's references to the other stories, the other characters, because Mrs. Canfield's cookery book gets filled with notes and advice and tips and recipe alterations and things. So throughout the generations, by the time that cookbook is 100 years old in 2020, it's going to have a lot of stuff in it and a lot of fun fodder for that author to pick and choose from. On a side note, one of the things that we did is, actually, this is part of the next one. It can be as a standalone. It can also be intertwined, where any book could be read in any order. Maybe you're doing a family saga, and each author's going to write a different member of the family story and how they intertwine, and maybe you could pick up anywhere you wanted. I know there are series out there like that. We have a plot and main character worksheet that we built in our Google Docs, so that at any point a writer could go back to that document and go, well, what did they say about that? What does their character look like? What is her theme in her life? What is her struggle that she's dealing with, so that you don't overlap too much? Also to add, well, here's the recipes that are going to be in the back of my book. Our Apron String series has a couple of recipes in the back of every book that came from the story. And so we posted those so that everyone would know what they're including. We also wanted to know how that book was going to end up, or how where the cookbook was going to end up, so that the other characters could know how it's getting passed along, in case they wanted to do something about that. Oh, and there was something to do with theme I was going to mention on that plot and character worksheet. I can't remember what it was. Does your series need a map or a cast of characters to guide them through, like if you were doing some kind of family thing like that? Or ours didn't need that, but we do have the series listed in the front of our interiors, because you're going to want to know, what exactly is going inside, in those inside details are, in the layout itself. We have our where's the title page going to be? Here's our list of books in the order that they're written, in case someone wants to read them in that order, things like that. Do you need, or will your group need, a reader who is an expert in your world to check for inconsistencies? Will they need to check the locales that you've set your story? Are they someone who's really good at knowing that era? They know everything about that era, and I want my book to be read by that person, so they can tell me, no, this is wrong, or oh yeah, this is great, and if you add this, it'll really even be better. Things like that. So I think I covered that.
And hire a formatter.
Oh yeah.
So Apron Strings, had
Go ahead.
Samantha Fury, and she formatted all of the books. And like I said before, we learned so much from her. But I think it is important that the insides of these books match, because that does bother readers. They want their series collections to match. So we want to have the same font, and we want to have the same little graphics in the books. It's just important to a lot of readers.
I think the only way that varied in the books is that, as indie authors, some of us had our own little logo.
Yes.
And
here
Yep. And go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. So you can see here that mine, my little imprint is Walsh Mountain Publishing, and Naomi's is it's covered by the people here, Long Lake Books. That's something that the authors need to decide. Are we going to have our own little imprint in the cover matter, or are we going to have a series imprint? And I've worked on series with it being both ways. So that's something It doesn't matter that much. I think it's just if you have different imprints, then readers will definitely know you're independent, right? So, but I don't think it's anything you need to hide anyway. ISBN shopping, there's a big difference between using the Amazon freebie or buying ISBN. It just looks nicer on the cover to me if you purchase the ISBN. But so you have to discuss that as a group. And will you go wide? As a group, you have to decide, are you going to just stick with Amazon or are you going to have your books sold in other avenues? So all these come as a discussion piece in the series
And
creation.
that was something in our group that we kind of left up to the individual. And some people haven't put their feet in that going wide water yet, like me. I want to, but I haven't gone that learning curve yet. So right now my book poly is just an Amazon production, but I would like to go wide down the road and stuff. And some of the other gals did because they like the print quality better from other places. So.
And then, of course, we already talked about royalties and taxes or donations to a charity. And then another thing, believe it or not, that came up was glossy or matte. So some authors prefer glossy, some prefer matte. And so that's a little bit of a debate. So the good thing is that I think so many independent authors being out in the world, I think we just have a lot more flexibility, even in the tradie industry now, where you're not stuck to having a glossy cover if you are, nonfiction and a matte cover if you're fiction. When you go to the bookstore, you're going to see some glossy covers thrown in with the fiction areas, and they do stand out. And it's a reader preference too. Like some readers can't stand it when the glossy page sticks to their leg. Like, the cover sticks to their leg when they're reading. Like that really bothers them. So there's all kinds of things that you wouldn't even think about that come up when you have these debates. Okay. Having a little trouble changing the slide.
What is our
Here we go.
one?
Behind the scenes. Just something else that I wanted to mention is that you might want to have a ministry statement. What are you doing this for? Who are you trying to reach? Something, even if it's not printed on the book, maybe it's not a tagline for the series, but it's maybe something behind the scenes that keeps your focus in the right place. And then behind the scenes, we have the authors only groups. These are the places where all these details are worked out. And so I've been in all of these here. I've been in the Facebook private groups with the indie series. I've been in the Messenger group where that's all we have is a Messenger group, shared Google Drives, and we have apps like Wix. So let me just highlight really quickly some of the differences. The Facebook group is super convenient and it's easy to find your files because you can just use the little file tab and it's easy to organize. The Messenger group, some people really love it, but it's too linear for me. I can never find the information I need, it seems like. But some people really love those chats. The shared Google Drive, this is something that I've been using for years with school. I wrote curriculum with a bunch of other people and we'd all be working on the same curriculum document at the same time. And it was just so fun and exciting to just be on that same document. You could see each other's names and different colors popping up. So you knew you weren't working on the piece that they're working on. And boy, can you get a lot done in a very short amount of time when you're working on a shared drive. And then a new one for me is I'm working with the authors group on Wix right now. And I love it because it's a break from everything I'm usually doing. So I'm not on Facebook, so I can't be distracted by Facebook things popping up. It's my own little area to go. And when I'm there, I'm just in the right mindset to write. And the lady, this is kind of still a hush-hush series, so I can't go into details, but the woman who is hosting the site has even beautiful music playing in the background. And it just puts me in the spirit of what I want to be writing for the series. So I love it. But the bottom line is no matter what kind of only group you're in, meet regularly, have fellowship times together, encourage one another, and pray for each other. And the Apron Strings ladies, when we're going through a hard time, we post our prayer requests in our Facebook page and we pray for each other. And another group that I'm in, we meet every Sunday night and read the Bible study together and pray. And another one every Wednesday, it's prayer request time, and we hold each other in prayer. And I just think that we need that spiritual component underlying all of our wordsmithing, and that helps us out. Creating the covers. I know we're going over our time, so
yeah, I'm going to try to
I'll
just
speed it
cruise
up
through.
here.
I'm going to just cruise through a couple of these.
Yeah.
You know, again, you're in the commitment for the long haul, and that includes your cover designer. We wanted one person to do our covers, and that same person is doing our interiors. So she knows all the nuances, but she's trying to work on multiple parts at the same time. She's working on somebody's cover, she's doing somebody else's layout. So, you know, we respect her time. We try not to be annoying to her. We try to, you know, just give her what she needs on time. If you're hiring a company to do it, maybe that's a little different, but most of the time we hire these individual cover designers, and we like to promote their stuff too. We pay them promptly because they might be wanting to go on family vacation and need a little extra cash. So we pay promptly when we find out what it's going to cost. We may have to work with them on finding imaging, like we did for the Highlanders. We may have to help with styling and fonts and making sure you're going to make sure your author's name is spelled correctly and that the blurb reads exactly as it's supposed to and is edited properly. It says here on our thing to be aware of legalities of imaging and fonts. You want to make sure that you pay for your images. You know, you can find some free for commercial use images, but it's helpful to, or like Deposit Photos offers a thing a couple of times a year, but for $39, you can drop down like 100 images. And so you can use some of those. I used that for my background image. I had that, but I did pay for my image of Polly separately on a site. I can't remember which site it was, but that was like $33 for the image of her. One thing about fonts that I should have even mentioned in the inside details, when we were agreeing on what font our books were going to be written in, Jenny had said, well, let's just go with Times New Roman, keep it simple and stuff. And we were like, okay. Well, I was talking to my friend Peg, and she telling her this is what we were going to do, and she's like, you can't do that. Times New Roman is a copyrighted font. And I was like, oh, didn't know that. So even fonts, you have to make sure that if it's copyrighted, you know, you can't use that font. There are many that you can. I think didn't we go with one of the Garamonds?
Garamond, yeah.
And so just to be aware of that, even on the covers too, that you're paying for things. And that brings me to the elephant in the room, AI. My image of Polly is AI, and I set out wanting to find a model, and I searched all the sites, and all the girls in our group were helping. We were helping each other, trying to find a cover model for each of our covers that suited our covers. And we could not find at that time a 20s image that was not a flapper, that didn't have wasn't having one of these big long cigarette things, or twirling beads, or wearing headbands and beads all over. We couldn't find one. It was like so stereotyped, all the imagery out there that was available that we were able to find anyhow, and that our cover artists couldn't find anything. So then I found this picture on a photo stock site. It was an AI generated picture for sale on a photo stock site. And so I purchased that, and then our cover artist manipulated it some more to make it work for our cover. She didn't just plop it on there as was. She did some manipulations for color and tone and eyes and the arm positioning and things like that. And Rosanna White, who is a cover artist extraordinaire, and she publishes indie books, and she has her own publishing outfit. She wrote a very well thought out piece about AI on her website. I would recommend you read it. It's a very insightful piece, and what to do, what not to do. Like, never design a cover entirely by AI, because you'll probably be breaking some rules. And to be aware that when you publish up to Amazon, if you haven't done it in the last year, that there's a little box you have to click to that recognizes if you've used any AI in any part of your book. They want to know. And so it's just being forthright and honest and being able to do that. And So just be aware, I'm very leery of AI. I feel like it's gonna be, it's gonna be abused. It is
Mhm.
already, and it will continue to be abused and used in good ways too. And I think,
Mhm.
even in the last days here, it's gonna be part of the beast system in some way. But that said, there are some uses for it too. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, marketing. I'm going to list all the different ways that we market, just and go over quickly because of our time limit here.
Please.
Newsletter swaps, Facebook parties, scavenger hunts, blog and podcast interviews, publicity tours, book funnel collabs, out of the box promos. You have to work together. You have to collaborate. So it's really, I mean, the nature of what it's called, collaboration. It's everything that's involved in these series and anthologies. So I just had some examples of graphics that I had made for um, some of our different things that we did to create a buzz for the apron strings. So on the left, you see some of the daily posts that we've done. Then on the right, you see that we had a Christmas cookie exchange, and then we had a Friday flurry. So just something a little different that we just popped up there to create some steam some buzz for our Facebook page. And we have many more beauties coming out. The first three are pictured there at the bottom. Beatrice is coming out this coming month in April. And I just can't wait to see what else the series will bring because I haven't seen all the covers yet. So,
Yep. And again, that Facebook group page is the Apron Strings Readers Group page. If you want to ever pop in there and just haunt it for your own ideas.
Yeah.
it's fun. And here's our contact information. And then we'll just take questions if you have any questions for us.
Wow, this is great. I love, again, just love these covers. I love the graphics that you showed just on that last couple slides. You guys are very, very, you have someone who really knows how to do graphics and makes them beautiful. Those are fun. I think we
That
have
was
one
Amy.
question. Yeah. We're gonna have to keep this really short though because we're long, but thank you, ladies. This was amazing. There is a lot that goes into collaboration and all these details, especially when you're doing them on your own and not with a publisher. So
Yeah.
a lot of this I've done anthologies, I've done novella collections, I've done the series standalones and the ones with the author's guide where you had to know, everybody in town and make sure you put at least one of them in your story, all that kind of thing. We did have one quick question. How are collections collaboratives different than a series? Is it just marketed as a series together, if not published within one book? And I think you did kind of answer that already.
Yeah, we do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, a collection
do
is like a
individually.
yearly. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. And feel free to contact us through any social media or whatever if questions pop up that
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's
you're
great.
wanting to know. We're totally open to that, to talking about it. So
I appreciate the invitation to stalk your Facebook page for ideas.
No, we love
I may
it.
do
We love
that.
visitors.
I may do that. Well, listen, thanks again. And thanks everybody for being here. We will have a very brief after party, but it can't last very long because, well, just because. So,
you got to pack.
Yeah.
yeah, it just can't. But anyway, we're really glad to have you. Thanks so much. And just really quick, if you're watching the replay, we do invite you to join us any Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, and around the globe to find your time zone. And Brandy, yes, real quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, join us next week.
Yes.
We have Rhonda Dragomir coming with 7 reasons she hired a sensitivity reader. So
Nice.
a good one to catch.
That will be a great one. And
Yeah.
Rhonda's debut novel has also recently released.
Yes.
In a series.
In a series, yes. What is it? The Day to Remember series from Barber. And her book is called When the Flames Ravaged. And they are historical events of of tragedies, of disasters. And each book is, and I read her book, endorsed it. It is wonderful. So you will want to be here for her. So again, and if we invite everybody to join our Writers Chat Facebook group and check out our Writers Chat Facebook page, where you can see all of our episodes, and there are a slew of them on all kinds of writing topics. So until next week, everybody, thanks for being here, and we'll see
Thank you.
Thank you.